It's noon. Just some Zoom etiquette. I feel like we all know this by now, but just please turn your mic off if you're not a panelist. And we do have a chat feature. So that's what we're really going to be relying on today, because we're going to be covering a lot in this session. And so please ask your questions in chat. I will see those and I will ask those questions as they come up, or even save some. Hopefully there's time at the end to also ask questions to our panelists. So a little bit about myself. I am Diana Wright. I'm going to be moderating the conversation here today. And I work at the Papa John Center for Entrepreneurship with a team of, I think we're now up to 9 people. And my role is really in the entrepreneurship programs and also marketing. Just kind of a fun side note, I also like to dabble into photography. And so this is why this conversation today is exciting for me. I love working with entrepreneurs, but I also really love working with creatives. And if you do not know what the Papa John Center is here at Iowa State, we are an entrepreneurship center, and we basically help a number of different entrepreneurs, whether they have wild ideas, if they're trying to scale a business, or even a side hustle and trying to navigate where you actually get started. So the Papa John Center here in Ames, we've been here for 25 years this year, and we serve a lot of campus and also the community. So that's just a little bit of information. You can always ask questions at the end. What we're talking about today is side hustles. So this is actually the second event of the series, and I really encourage all of you attending today. We are doing all different types of conversations throughout the month of March and also April. And so we really decided when thinking about this topic, I know Megan and I had a big hand in that. And we've seen kind of this resurgence of people trying to rediscover what it is they're actually passionate about, and even how to navigate this quirky world of, 5 to 9, which is, if you're in a profession, if you have a typical job, it's trying to figure out, what to do during those times to actually try to start a side hustle. Or even if you're a student, how do you get started? And the topic today, obviously no surprise, is photography. So we are going to be walking through whether it's how to figure out how to capture story, editing styles, and even really the business side. That's what we're here for, and to try to talk about, making your passion and then turning it into hopefully making some money. So I'm going to just kind of go to the next slide here, hopefully, and have each of the panelists actually self-introduce themselves. So Jamie, you're going to be up first, and we'll just go in order of this photo. And if you can just share who you are and a little bit about your story and background.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Me Mill, the E silent. Just so that I am a photographer of many things, but didn't start out doing that. 15 years in the advertising industry. I actually graduated from Iowa State with an advertising degree. And I never even owned my own camera until maybe not even 10 years ago. So hopefully there's hope there too, to be able to say that I didn't have any technical training or any photography classes leading in, but now am shooting and creating full time. So I'm really eager to be here today. I'm so honored and grateful to sit here with the other panelists. And I'm eager to share more of my work and answer any questions you might have.
Cool. Jacob.
All right, I'm Jacob Fitzenberger. I've been working in natural resources for probably 10 years or so. I currently manage about a 2,400 acre wildlife preserve half hour west of Des Moines. And I started with photography probably about 10 years ago. I was working on a research project in southern Iowa studying grassland birds, and had gotten a camera as a graduation present, and had plenty of time down there to play around with it, and kind of had an on and off relationship with it for 6 or 7 years, and really kind of started taking it more seriously 2 or 3 years ago. And I don't know, it kind of feels like cheating being a wildlife photographer while I manage a wildlife preserve. I kind of have unlimited access to my subjects. So but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Awesome. Chris.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Gannon. A pleasure to join all of you and honor to take part in this as well. Yeah, I'm an Iowa State grad as well, and now I'm employed by my alma mater. So that was an interesting twist. I started at Iowa State about 7 years ago and joined the university as a university photographer. But a little bit of background on me, having attended Iowa State. I was a journalism and public relations major at Iowa State. And my passion for photography really started back in high school when I took the old high school class where you're learning how to process film and working in the dark room. And I basically stole my dad's camera and just kind of took off with it. So photography was definitely a passion while I was at Iowa State studying journalism. I did all the photography that I could, you know, all the organizations and the newspaper and things like that on campus. And then I had about a 20-year span where I worked as a photojournalist in newspapers, and the last 10 of which were at the Des Moines Register before leaving in 2014 to join Iowa State. So I feel very blessed to do what I love. Certainly a passion, I'm sure, for all of us. So yeah, it's great to be at Iowa State. I help tell the visual story of what the university is doing with our office in communications and all the colleges, and keeps me super busy. So glad to be here.
Thank you, Chris. Hunter.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm probably the only person that didn't go to Iowa State here. I am originally from Muscatine, but I currently live in Nashville, Tennessee. Wow, my love for photography started so long ago. My dad always had a camera with him everywhere we went. And I always wanted to work in the music industry growing up. But I started while I was getting my BFA at Iowa. I started working for a wedding photographer in Cedar Rapids, where I did all of her editing and then shot probably about 15 weddings alongside of her. And my senior year, people started asking me to do photos for them. So my business kind of just sprouted itself. But that last year at school, I actually was a part of a chapter at Iowa that was for CMA EDU. It was to help kids get into the music industry that weren't in Nashville, but gave them opportunities to work amongst the music industry. And they allowed student photographers for the year of 2015. And I happened to apply and got in. And ever since then, they've asked me back. And I've been working along CMA for almost 7 years now, shooting the music festivals and awards, and slowly building my music industry career here, doing artist portraits and such, working on documentaries like the Bluebird documentary. It's about the most iconic cafe here, where they have had everyone from Garth Brooks to Taylor Swift performing songs that nobody's ever heard before. And then I have been always shooting weddings since I graduated. So I'm on year 7 with shooting weddings and families and maternity. And I'm either traveling with artists or traveling for a wedding somewhere, and kind of always on the road. So yeah, I feel like that's about it for me.
Cool. Nice to meet you, Hunter. And I know all Jamie, Chris, and Jacob. So really excited to have you guys here today and really to talk about photography. I didn't realize it on this next slide, but exploring the photography mediums, literally all 4 of you cover these or have at least covered these different mediums throughout your work. And I'm really going to kind of get started into the story aspect. So we'll go through actually a photo from each of the panelists, and they're going to kind of just share what's behind this story and even the thought process of capturing story. So Jamie, you are first up if you want to talk about this lovely photo, which is actually a mural too in downtown Des Moines.
Yes, thank you, Dana. It was an incredibly hard ask that you put forth of us to just send me 2 or 3 photos, as if there are just 2 or 3 that cover the gamut of creative work that I'm sure we all do. And so ultimately, I chose this one for a number of reasons. As we'll talk later, when you're trying to pay the bills, if you don't have a steady check from a university coming your way, or a wildlife preserve perhaps, trying to shoot so many different things is important. And one of the avenues that I have found that feels right for my eye and my passion is this idea of authentic portraiture. Certainly, we have all seen in the past probably 10 years the proliferation of filtered faces on Instagram, and the rise of the selfie. And I have just always looked in other ways to create portraiture. And so this I thought was a unique example. This is certainly during a side hustle in which I was, a close friend of mine and I were, we established a portrait booth at 8035. This is when I was still full-time in advertising. So this was certainly, leaving the office early to get there, or maybe it was on a Saturday. But we had this portrait booth in which people were, how it works. You walk in and do something silly or hold up your beer and your picture's taken in the end. But my eye was constantly drawn to what was happening outside of the booth. And at one point I looked over and saw this little girl just staring off into space. And so I just kind of got down on my knees and snapped the picture and then walked away. But I knew in that moment, I couldn't wait to get home and look through my images, because I knew what I had captured. And to me, this was the pinnacle of what I create for, because I sort of stopped time here in this moment. What it also did for me, I feel, was get my wheels turning in ways of how can I turn street photography or my love of these still moments like this into artwork. And so Des Moines was starting to see sort of the renaissance of murals popping up downtown. And I reached out to a woman who I knew was sort of the curator of artists to paint murals. And I said, hey, I don't know if you have any empty walls. I want to put a big photo up, and I don't know how to do it, but I'll figure it out. And I think it's legal, but I'm not sure. And I don't know if it'll stay up 3 days, or now we're going on, I think it's 5th year. And so she said, actually, yes, I have space. Let's do it. Which is also the universe, stars aligning, I feel, in that capacity. And so what I wanted to share, sorry, clearly we can all talk a lot about this, was I then basically figured out how do I wheat paste. And I did that by watching YouTube videos of Shepherd Ferry. And I found a printer and printed 8 panels and rented a lift, and over the course of 2 days had a bucket and a broom and a pool noodle and put up 8 panels to create this giant mural. And that actually happened to be, I believe, the weekend after I quit my full-time job. And it was sort of the foray into, it's time to go. I'm an artist now. So this for me was just a beautiful moment of sort of stopping time, but also starting a new chapter and turning photography into art and just encompassing all of that. I should also say, I spent years trying to find these people because I had no idea who they were. I took the picture and turned around and got back to work. And I, oh gosh, maybe in 2018, I'm not sure, received an email by someone that said, you took my family's picture, and friends have told us it's on the side of the building, and we've been trying to figure out who you were. I think the Register did a write-up on muralists, and someone shared the article with them. This photo then made it into the Des Moines Art Center for a public exhibition, a community exhibition. And then I met them for the first time at that opening. And it was an incredible story. So I will stop now and on to the next.
That's really cool, Jamie. And I'm kind of curious too, and maybe as the other panelists, like anytime it's actually of people, like when that actually happens of strangers and then you meet them later. I don't know if that happens a lot. That's pretty special. So I appreciate you sharing that. Chris, you're going to be up next. Talk about this photo.
Sure. Well, Jamie, it was cool to hear the background story on that image. It's clearly a great bridge image of sorts for you as your career shifted, and I've seen it downtown. So way to go. I didn't know you put it up yourself, so that's cool. Anyways, this is, it was hard to pick images, but I just tried to select a few from my time at Iowa State to send you that reflect, well, in this case, a big part of my job at Iowa State is to showcase the student experience at Iowa State, which also encompasses faculty and staff and you know, all the large umbrella of things that a university has going on all at one time. But in this case, this is commencement. This was the last in-person commencement that we had in Hilton Coliseum. It was, so this would be, I guess, December of 2019, the commencement they have each semester. And one tradition that has blossomed over the years is at the end of the commencement ceremony, they're playing, I believe it's the Bells of Iowa State. And then they go into Sweet Caroline, which is another song that Iowa State has a long history of celebrating. And streamers are left under the chairs for the graduates to celebrate with at the end of the ceremony. So this is just an example of, you know, a big part of what I try to do in my work, both previously as a photojournalist, but also at Iowa State. There's a photojournalistic component of, again, capturing a moment, freezing time that conveys emotion, conveys experience. And in this case, the celebration, the jubilation of completing your college degree. So that's kind of the backstory here. I work to get myself in position to capture an angle that is powerful and will fill the frame well, and kind of give the viewer, you know, anytime that you can provide a reaction or a sentiment from the viewer of the image. And in my case at Iowa State, I'm always thinking about how can I capture images that are going to resonate with alumni, but also with prospective students, where alumni will remember their own experiences fondly, and prospective students could imagine themselves at Iowa State. Do I want to be there? Do I like that? So that's a big part of what I do in my work. And that's kind of what drove this image here, is to get my camera in a place where most people aren't. Most people, you know, viewing the commencement are in the stands or not there at all. And so I just work to get myself in close to make a powerful image that will resonate with people.
Very well said. I wish this is what my experience was like graduating. I mean, this just looks so fun to be.
Yeah, I didn't have it either. They've instituted some cool stuff since we graduated.
That's cool. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, Jacob, you're up next. So talk about this photo.
Yeah. So yeah, this is kind of a photo that was, I guess, 10 years in the making, probably. This is a photo of a merlin. It's a small falcon, fairly uncommon bird in Iowa. They mostly just overwinter here. This is one of a pair that has been coming to the Glendale Cemetery in Des Moines, that I first learned about probably about 10 years ago. I came down, I was going to school at Iowa State, and came down to find my first merlin. And now I happen to live about a block away from the cemetery, so I see them fairly often. So yeah, they're actually, the first nesting pair of merlins were just found about 5 years ago, I think. The first pair since 1908. So fairly uncommon bird. So this photo probably took me a couple weeks of driving home. I'd stop every couple days in the cemetery, watch the Merlins for a while, take some pictures. And I knew I wanted to get pretty much this exact photo. And it was just kind of a matter of time and stopping by enough times to where I was driving home from work and the sun was kind of starting to drop down and I saw the moon coming up and I thought, okay, this is the night. So I pulled into the cemetery and kind of cruised some of the roads where I knew they hung out and found him at the top of this conifer, has a dead top on it where they love to perch, and got myself in a position where I could kind of get the moon in the background and I had the sunset coming from the west kind of lighting up the right side of his face there, so you can get some eye shine there a little bit. And it all just kind of came together exactly how I pictured it in my mind. But it was all, it all goes back to knowing your subject. I knew these Merlins, I had spent time with them, kind of planning out a shoot beyond just, I want to photograph this animal in this spot, kind of taking in all these different factors to really create something that's more than just a basic kind of portrait of an animal. And it's also a good example of how important it is to be a part of a community. So the Iowa Ornithologists Union has a listserv where you can sign up and receive emails, and you can send out emails basically on rare birds you're seeing across the state or kind of what you're seeing when you're out hiking. And that was kind of, I had been watching these Merlins on the listserv too, so I knew that they were hanging out too. So being part of a community, super important in wildlife photography. You can let a lot of other people do a lot of scouting for you and a lot of the work that takes a lot of time. But yeah, so it all kind of came together and this is what came out of it.
Well, I appreciate that. And I feel like a lot of us don't always think about wildlife, and like even how you're talking about how you get to have your subjects around you every day because of your job. So I just appreciate even kind of the knowledge and information you just shared about. I don't know if most people would be able to name what that was. So it's pretty cool. Thank you. I'm going to go now to Hunter. So Hunter, talk about this photo and where you were.
So I would say that it's not so much about the photo as like how I got to be there. I mean, like I mentioned earlier that my dad is a huge impact because he always had a camera with him. And I mean, we were music lovers because of him. And he took us to all our, like so many concerts growing up, and all I could do sitting in that crowd is like, man, I just want to be the person like shooting this moment, like witnessing like through a lens, just how much they love being on stage. And so this was probably my second or third year shooting with CMA. This is at the music festival. And I've had a bucket list of artists that I've wanted to photograph like for like years. I've had a huge list. Steven Tyler was always one of them. I grew up listening to Aerosmith with my dad and just was like, man, that would be so cool. But he's such an icon. So it's like, what moment would you ever have the possibility to do that? He's a rock star, is he going to come to Nashville? I don't know. Is he going to be in any of those things? It just happened to be that he signed a deal with a label and he came out with a country album. And so when I found out he came out with this album, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope he is at CMA Fest next year, because if he is, they're going to put him on the big stage. And just like, this might be my moment, my only moment ever to capture him. And it was the one year that CMA Fest, they took away, normally we have a photo pit that the photographers are in. And then all the fans are behind us. this is the one year that they took the photo pit away and they put us in with the fans. So they had like a new group coming in for every artist that performed, and we were only allowed to be in there for 2 songs. Normally for Fest, we get to be in there for the whole performance. A typical concert, you only get the first 3 songs. But for this particular year, for some reason, they were just seeing with the rules what they could do. And so I was in there with fans that were just as excited to be there as I was. And I was like shaking. I was so excited for this artist. And he's just, the picture is just him. It's him being awesome, him being a performer. It's him exactly how you would imagine him singing. And it was all about the like, man, I did it. I put that down in the universe, and, on my dream board, like I wanted to photograph Steven Tyler at some point. Would I ever get to go on tour with him? Probably not. He's got a full-time tour photographer, but that was my chance. And I've seen him he comes to the CMA Awards every now and then, but that was the first time he's ever performed for CMA. And it was just, I walked away. I was like, all I needed was 2 songs. 2 songs. I got what I needed. That photo has been on my website, on my business cards ever since, because it's just one of those moments that it's like, you're just so proud that you got to where you wanted, like all those years. So yeah, that's it.
That's cool. Sarah just said you manifested that in chat, and I absolutely second that. That's such a cool story.
I fully believe in manifesting the things that you want. So yes, absolutely.
Thank you. So I appreciate you all going into that. And I don't know if you guys who are listening, like that was just really fascinating, honestly, hearing all 4 different stories behind each of those images. So I'm kind of now going to switch topics a little bit. Like now that we've kind of understand like even just story and a little bit even more about each of you guys, if one of you could actually just offer, like, how did you get started? And was it just through practice and someone gave you a camera? Like, think about if there's students on here today and maybe they just literally got a camera today. Like, what is your first piece of advice when you're just getting started? I don't know who wants to take that.
I'm happy to say a few words on it. The majority of the time that how I've gotten started in each of my like kind of areas of expertise is I have always worked with other photographers, worked under them, learned from them, learned their processes. And I still do that in order to keep up with, things that are changing. I've gotten into studio work the last few years, and that's not something that I initially learned, lighting and all that. I was mostly all natural light. Like I don't shoot with a flash or anything at concerts because, it'll just interrupt. And at weddings, when I shoot weddings, it's all outside natural light unless I'm in a reception. So I think it is finding someone that you appreciate their work, seeing if you could learn from them. I started with interning underneath a wedding photographer, and I'm 7 years in, still assisting big photographers in Nashville that have been doing this for decades because they have the experience to share with me to help me get better too. And most people are willing to put you under their wing and help you. So I would definitely say that try to find those people that inspire you and see if you can help them. So and assist them, and you'll benefit from hands-on experience more than you will sitting in a classroom. So
appreciate. Anyone else want to add?
Yeah, I'll jump in and just say I totally agree with Hunter about finding people in the field that you respect that can help you, can critique you, and combine that with, when you talk about defining your why, follow your passions. And my experience was much like this when I was a student and coming up in the industry. A good place to start, if you're literally just thinking about starting with photography as a side hustle or as a potential career, start literally where the place you can start with your passions. Shoot what you love, shoot what you know, and then go from there. yeah, chase down, like many of us have in our own particular fields, the types of photography that you enjoy, whether it's portraiture, wildlife, storytelling, marketing, advertising, those sorts of things. Shoot what you're drawn to, and then take your best images that you're most proud of, and collaborate with people that are more advanced than you, or that you feel can offer some mentorship or some critique to help you continue to find that, that time to practice, that time to push boundaries, to try new things, and to experiment. And part of experimentation is failure. Don't be afraid to, go out and attempt something in your photography that you've never done before, and don't be afraid to fail, because failure, you learn from that, and next time you come back with more experience and greater accomplishment.
Cool. Thank you, Chris. So now we're going to jump into breaking down the process. And I have each of the panelists are going to be sharing a few different things actually related to lighting and editing and artistic style. So we're going to get started there actually. And Chris, this is your photo. So lighting obviously plays a huge part of photography, whether like what Hunter just said, if you're not using any flash, or if you're trying to utilize other lights that you bring into a room. So Chris, talk about what you had to do for this photo and what it means.
Okay. Well, another big part of my work at Iowa State involves showcasing the work of faculty and staff, visualizing sometimes technically written stories that need something to draw the reader into, or to just visually and in an exciting way correlate what they do. So, and a lot of times that means I'm walking into poorly lit labs, sometimes cluttered and just not aesthetically appealing workspaces. And that's fine. A lot of, for researchers at Iowa State, they don't need compelling photographic light. They need utilitarian fluorescence. And all of us here know fluorescent light is probably one of the worst light sources that you can shoot in if you had to. So the story behind this is a researcher at Iowa State who's in genetics, and he's just doing some groundbreaking genetics research on zebrafish. So he's standing in one of his large research rooms, and what he's standing between here are, you'll see what are hundreds of these tanks of zebrafish. So it's an interesting space to look at, but I wish I had also sent the photo of what the room was in natural light, which was just overhead fluorescent light and not very compelling and kind of cluttered and that sort of thing. So in my work, where I'm stepping into a lot of labs, there's neat things in there to showcase, but there's also poor lighting, and there's also some things that aren't going to contribute visually or aesthetically to an image. So for me, that's where the lighting comes in. And I knew when I was in this room that I needed to basically control all of the lighting in an image and not use any of the fluorescence. So, and I wanted to showcase his personality. He had a great flair for his work, and a very bright guy. And so we took out one of the aquariums, as you can see he's holding, and I lit him. I travel campus as light as I can, but I do bring, all of this is shot purely with speed lights. I'm not bringing studio lighting with me. So you can accomplish a lot with speed lights or flashes that, can be on your camera or off camera. And so I shoot just about everything. I do have a studio on campus, but I generally don't tote studio lighting with me unless I need something to overpower the sun outdoors or something. So since I'm shooting inside, the speed lights work well. And this, just to kind of quickly tell you the setup, I knew I didn't want to use any of the fluorescence. So we turned some of the fluorescence off, left some of the fluorescence on, but I'm shooting in a way to not capture any of that ambient light. And then I set up, I think this is shot with 3 speed lights. There's one So we're in a long corridor with the aquariums, and there's one behind him that's illuminating the sides of the aquariums, as you can see. And I wanted to have a little reflection there, a little bit of translucence through the plastic of the aquariums. And then I have another light on a stand with a diffuser to soften the light coming on his face. And then I had a third light down low, as you can kind of see that his shirt's kind of lit, but I wanted a little light coming up and under through the aquarium to highlight the fish. So it's kind of for me, it's kind of a jigsaw puzzle to put together and then to balance all the lighting. But it's an example of creative lighting that I use a lot of times that accompany technical stories as a way to draw in the audience, and also to make the stories in my office. A lot of these stories are going to other media outlets and to technical publications. And when we can have a strong visual to go with that story writing from our office, it helps get our stories published and seen by more people. So it's just an opportunity to help provide some of that for the university.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. So Jacob, you're kind of in a different world of lighting, and I would assume maybe mostly natural, but talk about this photo or even other photos that you have, and like, are you camouflaged? Like, kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I shoot, probably 99% just with natural light. The only time I use a flash really is if I'm shooting macro. Yeah, it's obviously kind of a big challenge, something that's out of your control, the intensity of the light, the direction of the light. You don't control those things, but you kind of control how you can use them through how you position yourself in relation to your subject and when you're shooting. For me, lighting a lot of the time is just waiting, just sitting still for hours in the mud or chest deep in a river, set up where the light is going to be right and where you're pretty sure your subject is going to end up. So a lot of the lighting comes into the planning kind of phases of where you're shooting and where you position yourself in relation to your subject. This particular photograph, so this is on a prairie restoration out at my work here. It's a rough blazing star. It's a native wildflower here in Iowa, monarch butterfly, and a banded garden spider. But this was actually shot kind of mid-afternoon. So when the sun was kind of fully out, the light was super harsh, wasn't great. Luckily, it was kind of partly cloudy that day, so it was just kind of a matter of kind of sitting in this patch of rough blazing star and waiting for the clouds to be just right to give me kind of the right light for this shot, diffuse the sun just enough to kind of pull some of that harshness off of it. But yeah, for lighting, a lot of it comes down to just your position and sitting and waiting. Obviously, mornings and evenings is when I really try to get out the most, get the golden hour light. And it also happens to be when, the majority of wildlife is more active. So I would definitely get up before the sun, get out, find a spot and sit still and let the light kind of do its thing and use it as it moves along. And then try to get out in the evenings again. Those are kind of your best bets. But you can shoot in the middle of the day, especially overcast days are great. The light's kind of fully diffused and you can come away with some great shots then too.
Cool, thank you. So Jamie, if you want to talk about your artistic style, I would really say, and I know you could talk a lot about this, these two photos are beautiful. And I know you had a huge hand in even the lady's mask, what that is. So talk about your artistic style if you can, and just kind of where you guys started.
Sure. I'm actually going to talk about the mask picture first.
Okay.
I did choose this one just in case it crossed into the lighting discussion. You know, as Chris was mentioning, there are incredible technical ways to get the perfect shot. And then there is cobbling together what you can to get the perfect shot. This is a ballet dancer. This year took on the role of creative director for Ballet Des Moines. That really is sort of a glorified marketing person that shoots everything for them. So we'll keep massaging what that title actually means. But when the dancers came back this fall, they were coming back to no stages and no ability to have an audience. And what I have tried to do as an artist is create work that gets my values or ideals across in a meaningful way. And so this fall, I don't believe last fall, time is elusive. We had no mask mandate in this state, as you probably recall. And I knew that the longer we didn't have that, the longer theaters would be closed. And I was trying to find a beautiful way to say, when you mask up, you can save the arts and the literal artists that are trying to bring their art to you. So I developed these floral masks, one for each of the dancers, sort of based on their personality. And I photographed them with them. And I thought I took all my studio lighting equipment with me to the ballet studio and was missing like some major feature. So basically, just from a lighting standpoint, I positioned the dancers. I had a black cloth background. She's sitting on a folding chair, and directly behind me by 2 feet is a glass door. And so you can sort of see the reflection in her eyes. That's just purely the sunlight that was outside in September. And then in post, I was able to create a little bit more contrast, but you can make things like this if you forget important lighting equipment. But again, this was a way of creating portraiture, but also a bit of protest in there as well. If you look at the other image, it's a beautiful young woman named Shay Loren. And she, for many years, when school was in session, again, to Chris's point, in terms of finding people that you trust and that you want to work with. One of my best friends is a teacher at Des Moines Public Schools and leads an urban leadership class. And so every year I would go into their class and photograph the students for a big teen summit project that they would put on. The first couple of years I did this, it was interesting for me because I would go in and I would photograph them and I would produce concepts of them. And as I continued to sort of refine my craft of shooting with authenticity, I realized that I was shooting them how I was projecting on them, if that makes sense. And so I shifted gears and would start to put together ideas for concepts and pitch them, present them to the students to say, how are you feeling? What is the mood right now? What do you want to portray in your imagery? And so after a discussion, we came up with this idea of the fact that there are so many layers to the human spirit, particularly a high school student. I mean, particularly a 41-year-old woman as well, but to be able to shoot these students and create art for them that helped tell that story was a huge honor. And so this image, the idea was actually that I would photograph them. I would take 2 or 3 different shots, and then I would print everything out on my very lowbrow printer at home. And then I would start to manipulate the pieces of paper to create an image for them. And so it was really just this artisanal coffee table takeover in terms of how can I in a very analog way, literally rip up images to create something new, all while getting across this feeling of there are layers to each one of us, and we are not just this one static thing that you shoot at a moment in time. So that's a little bit unique from perhaps a photography standpoint, but I do think it's continued to inform how I create, which is why I say I'm not just a photographer, but I'm an artist and photographer, because I think I blend these things in ways that create new works. And then lastly, I just want to add, one of the things that has been incredibly difficult for me, having no technical background, is it's very easy to feel this imposter syndrome of the trained photographers I've always loved. And then all of a sudden I appear on Instagram like, oh, I'm a photographer too. And one of the ways I think I've worked past that is by not just shooting, but shooting and then creating new things from it. So, you know, anyone can be told a lighting technique and almost shoot the exact same thing. But when you are within reason, I didn't mean that to be derogatory in any way, but when you are manipulating your own images and turning them into something new, it just gave me a pride of ownership and creation that really helped me continue to feel like I belong here and I can create in this space.
Awesome. Hunter, if you can tell us in a few minutes, we're going to kind of keep pace, but just talk about these photos and even your editing as well.
I mean, clearly they're two very different images. Yeah. On the left is an artist, songwriter friend of mine that I was doing portraits for her social media and stuff. And we were in studio and it was just kind of like a fun session. We were messing with light, messing with outfits. And while the one on the right is very light, bright, airy, like the majority of my weddings and families and newborns and all that stuff, they all have a very consistent style. Whereas the one on the left, anything music industry, it's completely dependent on the artist or the show or the surroundings, whether or not it's a music festival or the CMA Awards. You kind of work with what you're given. Whereas on the right, like most of my weddings and families and stuff, I shoot majority outside. I base it all off the sun. The one on the right is actually a film shot. I've started to incorporate medium format film into a lot of my work, especially in the wedding world. I do a lot of 35mm film in the music world, especially with concerts, not so much in portraiture. But so if you look at these two and you think, how would you put these two together marketing wise when you're thinking about a website or an Instagram? When I first started, I had a personal Instagram and then a photography Instagram that I put all of my different variations on. It didn't last very long. Every time I got on my Instagram to post something, I just was like, it's like light, dark, it was just all over the place, crazy. It wasn't consistent. And curating your business and your Instagram feed, especially because most of us use that as the majority of our advertising. You want it to be consistent and have a look. So I had to actually separate. So now I have a music industry Instagram and then weddings and family Instagram to separate the two different artistic styles. So my wedding one is very consistent with lighting, and especially since most of it is all medium format film on there. And then my music one, it's kind of just whatever the shoot is, whatever the industry event is, you know. So sometimes I think it's really important that you can diversify your work and understand that like each scenario is different. Like there's a lot of people that will preach like, oh, you should only shoot weddings, like, oh, or you should only shoot families, like you should find your niche. Well, your niche is whatever you want it to be. It's whatever like fuels your soul. So if you have two different sides to your niche, like I do, separate them. It's okay. You can have multiple, like explore, like that's what's going to make you a phenomenal photographer, is if you can be given a scenario and understand exactly how you want to portray it. And so, yeah, I guess so. Everything that I edit, especially in the music industry, everything is different. Sometimes it's just going to CMA. Like I've been shooting a donation drive for them all week. And it's just super low key, you know, watching as people bring donations in for the music industry, those who have been affected in the music industry and are still struggling to pay their bills. And then there's events like weddings that are, I mean, they're starting to pop up again, and I'm starting to get busy with those. And those are all day events where, you know, they want to look at their gallery and they want to know this is consistent. If I put this in a wedding album, it's all going to flow nicely. So yeah, it's just, if you have multiple niches, go for it. It's okay to have different artistic styles and different editing for everything, but yeah.
Awesome. Kind of gets me into the next point. So, and I apologize. So we're running about 10 minutes to 1 o'clock. So right now, if you guys have any questions, we're going to try to now get more into the business side of things. And like, I know the name of this workshop today is how to make money. And I think we've gotten a lot of really great tips so far. And even what Hunter just said, like, you can have multiple niches and like find what you're passionate about and just do the work. So if any of you guys could comment actually about getting discovered, or even like, how did you make your first dollar in photography? And was that scary? I know the next slide, we're going to talk about pricing. So even if you could bridge that, who would like to start?
I'm going to just throw something out in terms of having worked in a corporate setting for 15 plus years, where a paycheck just comes every 2 weeks, regardless, seemingly. The scariest thing, I think, from a purely freelance, not paid continuously to work for anyone, is just not knowing where money is coming in next. And that is incredibly stressful. That has not changed for me, even though I'm doing what I love and I'm working for myself. I do think one of the best, most simplest pieces of advices in terms of pricing and bridging that gap is knowing exactly how much outgoing money there is. So that seems simple, but to have a studio is always X amount. To get a Sunday delivery of the New York Times is always X amount. And then being able to price your work to pay those bills is a really great simple math problem. So I used to say like, oh, maybe I'll only charge this for this session. Well, if I were to charge $100 more, that would pay for my studio every month. So trying to come up with ways that you feel good about bridging that gap between this is what I have outgoing, therefore I must at minimum have this incoming, is such a simple tool that can easily go unnoticed, I think.
Thank you, Jamie. So talk about creative rights, guys. And I know this was a question that was brought up earlier, and Jamie, you did a great job answering. But whether it's creative rights in the sense of working for someone else, like who owns the image, who owns the photos, and also talk about, you know, if it is something you're selling, how do you protect your photos?
I'm happy to talk on this because I deal with very different scenarios. How I deal with the music industry stuff is very, very different from how I deal with a wedding. My wedding clients get print rights to their photos, which means I still own the copyright and I still can use them as I please, as long as I have model release from them. But they are not allowed to go use it to, I don't know, say it's someone famous and they want to like use it to like, maybe use it for like a music video of some sort, you know, because like a lot of country artists lately have been, they've been writing love songs about their significant other, and they use their wedding videos as their music video for that song. But if they were to take a photo and put it up on a billboard, but they didn't run it past me, you know, you get into some really big legal work, especially in the music industry side. So my contracts and my, the copyright issue gets a little bit more complicated in that area than it does with weddings. Most people, they just want to be able to, most wedding clients, family clients just want to be able to print their photos and put it up in their house. But with artists, whether or not it's shooting for somebody that is trying to put out an EP or use it on merchandise, there needs to be a specific guideline when you go into that shoot. I am very adamant about contracts in all of my work because I don't want to lose out on that opportunity to make more money. I've had friends that haven't done contracts and one of their photos ends up on a hood of a NASCAR car and they didn't get any money out of it. Like that's like a large chunk of money that could help them pay bills. But they're in the music industry, there can be sneaky people. They might not read the contracts or they might think that they own something that they don't. So you have to be like very adamant about, you know, like your usage fees are Instagram, website, little things like you could put it in a magazine as long as it's not advertising for a product, you know, and then you get into the things that are like billboards and merchandise that they're making money off of every single piece. So I've done a lot of asking around to a lot of the photographers that I idolize myself and have become friends with. So that way I know how to go about each scenario. And I'm still asking them questions. I'm still like, I'll email my lawyer and just be like, this is what they're saying. And I'm not entirely positive how I should be going about this at this time. And like I said, it's a lot more complicated for the music industry world than it is for the wedding world, where it's pretty straightforward for them. So, but yeah.
So this is kind of our last slide before we go into any more questions. But looking back at your work, I think this is probably really important, and just kind of the importance of self-reflection. If any of you guys can kind of talk about this, depending on where you're at right now with photography.
I mean, I'll talk again. I mean, I think that it's really important to know your passion and know what you want from your career, why it might take you a little bit to figure that out, because you know you're starting to understand photography and know where you can go with it. But like there are many avenues for it. I have photographers that are very, very different than me that are my friends, and we might end up at the same events, and I know that their photos are going to be very different than mine because we just see it differently. But I've had a lot of unexpected moments and opportunities in my career that even though I might have like hoped and like talked about that I would want to happen, I never truly imagined that they would. I mean, I've been credited in a movie as a photographer, and that was just like a pinch me moment. So I think it's important to reflect on how far you can go and how far you have come, and that there's always more work to do to become better every single year. You're never going to be exactly where you want to be. That person's always going to be, 10 steps ahead of you, the photographer that you want to be. So as long as you understand that it is learning and growing every single day, you might not ever catch up to the person you want to be, but you'll be proud of the success that you've done to get there. So,
Chris, Jacob, Jamie?
Yeah, I would say for me, I have a lot of time to reflect while I'm working on my photography. But I would even prefer to I'm trying to get away from the nature and wildlife kind of photographer label, and I would prefer to be called a conservation photographer, because I think it's really important that my work has a mission, so that the photo of the monarch on the rough blazing star, you can look at that and you can see a butterfly and a flower, and that's pretty and everything. But what that really is a restoration effort, a prairie restoration effort that's decades in the making. We have a 10,000-year-old prairie that's basically down to less than 1% of what it historically was, and trying to kind of convey that importance of that one little patch to the biodiversity of Iowa. And same with the kestrel photo. You don't see many of those because in the 60s and 70s, their numbers were decimated from pesticide use. So kind of highlighting conservation success stories, showing people that there's kind of hope, kind of trying to deliver that message that, you know, this isn't just a picture of a kestrel. This is a picture, or of a merlin. This is a picture of conservation efforts, of people working very hard to try to rebuild a home for Iowa's wildlife and natural things. So having a mission, I think, is super important.
One quick thing I'll add to what everybody's said, in addition to self-reflection, and I think it's tied into self-reflection, but as photographers, we're all working, I think, from a place of empathy, working from a place, it helps to think empathically. And, earlier Jamie said, to be mindful about not projecting your own perceptions of an issue or of a person in your work. And when you can work with empathy and connect with people before you're even taking images. This is one thing that helped me a lot as a photojournalist over the years. Sometimes you're meeting people on the best day of their lives and you're making fantastic images. Sometimes you're meeting people on the worst days of their lives and you have to make fantastic images that convey a story. So it's always a good practice to, with that self-reflection, to think about how you are looking at the world with empathy in order to tell a story and to make images that are very compelling, that connect and resonate with people. So that's something that I always try to do.
All right. So here's the last slide, guys, and we're right at 1 o'clock. So if any of you guys have questions, I know our panelists can probably stay on for about 5 more minutes, but feel free to answer or ask any questions in chat. This is all the contact information for Jamie, Jacob, Chris's, and Hunter. If you guys have any follow-up conversations, please reach out. Hunter said it right away at the beginning, like how she learned was reaching out to other people and asking and trying to figure out these questions. And so this is why we brought together the panel today, is that if you guys are working in your photography and you're trying to figure out your passion, please reach out. At the Iowa State Papa John Center, we're also here as well. But just thank you, everyone. I really appreciated this panel today. And there was a lot of really strong kind of different tips and nuggets to take away. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them in chat, but thank you guys. I really appreciate it. All right, let's see.
We're willing to share Instagrams, always.
For that question, we'll send that out in a follow-up email with all of their contact information, their website, and their Instagram. So thank you for asking that.
Says, what is your favorite artist you've been able to shoot? Mine would be Billie Eilish. I got a chance in 2018 to shoot her at Iowa. That's cool. Oh man, that's hard. I mean, just in general, being at the CMA Awards for 6 years now, I've seen just about everybody in the music industry, or country music industry, at least that you can think of. But favorite show, I've just so many. I mean, they're all so talented. It's unreal. I would say one of the coolest performances that I have ever photographed live was my very first CMA Awards. Justin Timberlake sang with Chris Stapleton. And it was very hush hush. No one was going to know about it until Justin Timberlake walked on stage, that was what they were going to do. And it was just the energy in the room. Chris Stapleton walked away for the first time being even nominated with all 3 awards he was nominated for. And it was incredible. It was incredible. And I mean, Justin Timberlake is iconic for somebody who grew up listening to NSYNC. Just even knowing that he was there was cool. That's probably one of my coolest performances that I've ever shot. I still wish I had the experience that I have now to have shot it, but I have a handful of photos that for me will always be one of the coolest moments. But then again, also Steven Tyler. That's why I use that picture. It's just like, that's a full circle moment in my life. So yeah, thanks for that question.
Jamie, I like your response there. Just do it.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
so
just
easy to forever not start.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, step. I was going to say I feel like that can be a never ending, I'm too nervous to begin. And with anything, once you just do it and say, screw it, I'm going to do it today, then all of the doors start to open.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just get out there, do it. Start with your passions, and we're always continually growing. The work that you shoot, today versus the work you can shoot in a year or more, it builds on itself. So don't be afraid to jump in, make mistakes, learn, get better every day.
Anyone have tips to using photography in digital marketing?
I can jump in. I mean, I do a lot of work that's used to market the university where I work. I guess the best thing to do is just to make sure, first and foremost, when you're using photography in marketing or advertising, that you have model releases for the individuals that you're photographing, that they can be used to promote a product or an institution. So make sure you do that so you're legally squared away. And then just flexibility and digital marketing in particular, whether you're going for social media, you're going for website use, you're going for multimedia production with videography. You want to make sure you have those conversations about where the images are going to end up so that you can be prepared to shoot. A lot of times I end up shooting, I'll be on a shoot and I'm keeping in mind that images I'm creating are going to land in 3 or 4 different places. And sometimes that impacts how you shoot. Sometimes that impacts how you compose, those sorts of things. So have those conversations ahead of time as much as you can so that you can come out of a shoot with a lot of productive work.
There was a question about selling prints and where the best place to do that is.
When oh, go ahead, Jacob.
So I that was kind of where I started making more money, was definitely when I started selling prints, and that was all from my website at the beginning. So I would say that was, for me, with wildlife photography, a lot of it was just investing in myself, building that website and all of that. Most of the money I had coming in from photography was going back into photography for me, and it still, for the most part, is. But yeah, building that website so people had a place to go where they could see my work. And I sell a lot on Instagram too. People will see something I post and message me. And I sell everything. I print everything at a local print shop here in Des Moines, and mail it out that way. But yeah, I would say a website is a great way to start selling prints.
I would say mine's kind of a little different, especially with in the wedding world and family world. I mentioned that they get the print rights from me, but the galleries that I actually send them with the photos, they can order prints and make books through the gallery. So that money just cycles back to me whenever they do that. Plus they're higher end prints than if they were to just run to Walgreens or Walmart and print it for their wall, So And there's different ways to do it, definitely. And I like Jacob said, like you could be selling them on your website. I've had people reach out just about my travel photos. When I post travel photos, just they want to put that in their living room and they think it's cool. Yeah, and a website is a phenomenal way to do that, and you know, have sizing options and stuff for them, so they can order through you and support you. So.
Right, thank you guys. And thank you for staying on a little late too for the panel. And I will be following up with each of you guys, but for any of you guys listening, please reach out, and then we'll be also sending out a survey after this. So let us know what you're interested in and if there's any additional questions we can help you with. So thank you everyone today, and enjoy your St. Patrick's Day too. Take care, guys.
Thanks for having us, Diana.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me.
Bye.
Thanks.
Yep. Bye-bye.